more contemporary side, on the more practical side, there's California is on fire. Southern California is on fire. And this is just a point on the outskirts of tolerance. Like we obviously don't tolerate arson, right? We don't. If you find a person going around just starting fires, especially in a terribly hazardous fire-prone area, you're not gonna be like, oh well,
Right.
you know, tolerance,
Yeah.
yay, you do you. No, like that person needs to be stopped and needs to face justice and I mean at that point, especially if you start something that big, there's actually not justice. Justice is not going to happen in this side of the world because you've done so much damage. Like, if you start a even if it doesn't happen in human habitation place, if you start a fire in a forest and it burns down like this giant national forest, like how are you ever going to like you cannot repay that. Like you've destroyed hundreds, thousands of years of development and growth, and you're a person who's going to live for 80 to 100 years. Like there, you can't go to prison for 1,000 years to like balance the scales or something. So there's this element of, okay, there's a line with tolerance where we stop things. Um, but, you know, again, at least theoretically in this country, we we have been committed to the idea that, we're not going to be so involved in everyone's life that nobody could commit arson, right? We're not going to be so monitoring people's purchases and tracking their behaviors that we're getting into pre-crime and we're stopping all crime before it happens, right? That we're tolerant to the point of like, okay, that's going to open us up to the fact that maybe someone goes and burns down a national forest and it's just a travesty and there's nothing we can do about it and justice is never going to be served adequately. But we'd rather have the freedom and we're going to tolerate that risk than and we're not going to tolerate the reverse, which would be like a draconian control system. So that fleshes out some of the territory a little bit.
When I think of some current events, like okay, so let's talk about the California. So not only necessarily are we talking about the tolerance or intolerance of arsonists, but it's California is one of the most, if not the most, outside of New York and Chicago, taxed states and then cities in the country. And so, you would think that you would get something then outside of, from that influx of tax dollars, such as maybe water in the hydrants or reservoirs full of water or some sort of a state of the art uh infrastructure to help combat it. Because it's not like this is just like the last major fire in California was 2 years ago. And then the one before that was 2 years before that. So it's not like this is just out of the blue. These things keep happening, and they're it's either mass incompetence, which inherently shouldn't be tolerated, or
Right.
it's intentional, which also should not be tolerated. Uh, and then they throw out oh well, it's climate change. It's early July. Yeah, you have the Santa Ana winds, but it's not hot enough to just start a brush fire. Whenever these fires have started in the past during the Santa Anas, it's always been arsonists, whether it's homeless people or illegals. And then that's a whole nother level of tolerance and intolerance. Well, how why are we having homeless people starting fires? Why are we having illegals starting fires? Um, and then it's the willingness to get really into the facts in order to fully understand what behavior then is tolerable or intolerable. I mean, if you buy into the media that it was, just like a couple of lone dudes going around with blow torches, illegal immigrants with blow torches, yeah, I mean that also shouldn't be tolerated. But I think it's more than that. I think that these people were probably paid for by other people to start these things, and it was, kind of compartmentalized, so that you never really understand the story. And so you know I think that just with the climate of the world, the idea of intolerance is a little more perceptible because there's just so much stuff going on where it's like, wow, maybe we've just been tolerating a bunch of nonsense and now we're reaping the benefits of it. But then at the same time, when you have social media and you have just a complete mass polarization and echo chamber, it's like, okay, now we're intolerable of things that we were tolerable in the past, which actually had a more cohesive outcome. There's a little more bipartisanship. So I think you can see it on both ends. Like one of the most recent events outside of the California fire that still just boggles my mind, and I think should be in the forefront of our country. But there's just so much stuff going on. It's hard to keep track of these things. But a couple of weeks ago, there was a woman that was burned alive on a New York subway.
Yeah.
And if we're talking about tolerance, I mean, this guy, this illegal Guatemalan immigrant that caught her on fire, got off the bus, sat on a bench, and watched her burn, and then grabbed like a cloth or a t-shirt and was fanning the flame so that she would burn faster. And there were people walking by doing nothing. There's an image of a cop walking by and then just like nonchalantly looking at the woman burning as he's walking by. And it's like, okay, are we to tolerate what is supposed to be the embodiment of law and order completely walking by chaos, in which he needs to apply his ability to enact order on the situation and he's just like meh, meh, it's nothing. Or there's another video of people getting off a plane or getting off of one of those little speed walks at an airport, and there's like a guy sitting on a trash can pooping in it, and there's like people walking and just like there's not one person saying, hey, um what are you doing? You know? Like no, like people were like, oh, like maybe I don't want to say anything. And I think the Daniel Penny effect has a lot to do with this, right? Because you had somebody that's like, I'm not tolerating this behavior. And so I'm going to make sure this behavior doesn't continue by taking this person out that was doing some erratic behavior. And unfortunately, that guy lost his life, but then Daniel Penny got the law book thrown at him. And so people are like, well, I don't want to like stand up and say, hey, this behavior is intolerable because I could be thrown in jail, you know?
Yeah. You also like not tolerating the behavior isn't just saying, excuse me, please stop.
Right,
Right. If you're actually not going to tolerate the behavior, that means physically intervening
right.
and like having officers to do that. So